out. On this found in translation segment, I wanted to give kind of catch people up on my thoughts on kind of politics this week. And so two things are in the minds of a lot of folks, the 2023 elections. That took place where, Democrats performed better than expected and generally really well. Both chambers of the Virginia legislature are now in Democrats' control. The House got flipped. The Virginia State Senate maintained Democratic control. A Democrat won in Kentucky. The abortion access was codified into the Ohio Constitution. The list goes on and on. A lot of good results around the country. And so, I think that it's so interesting because it brings to light a few dynamics. One is that, and this is before 2023. This has been the case for some time. Americans are, from an issue perspective, are center left people. If you poll people, particularly Latinos, even more so, but just in general, Americans, the majority of us generally feel like the government should have a fairly strong hand in trying to resolve problems. We want our healthcare to be better. We want, the student loan issue to be addressed. We want, greater access to affordable housing. We want better education for our kids. Even though there's a very vocal and fairly large minority of people that are about exclusivity and hate, generally want people's rights to be respected, and the majority of us, slighter majority that I'd like, but never a majority nevertheless, want our rights to be respected and don't want people to be discriminated against, and want an inclusive society. So, but our politics often doesn't work out that way because of sometimes we don't vote enough. Sometimes we get caught up in too many of us get caught up in culture wars and divisive issues, and there's legitimate issues in the community that we often see Democrats not addressing enough. And that when I get into the 2023, my thoughts on the local Philadelphia race, well, that's comes into focus. So, I the fun and now what has made this clear for Democrats, or given us Democrats a path to have uh, more victories than you would expect, is that the Dobbs decision, which has really put abortion in front and center, and women's reproductive rights front and center of all the debates, because the law is the law, and increasingly Republican leadership not just supported the initial Dobbs decision on the federal Supreme Court level, but proceeded to then try to restrict women's rights as much as humanly possible on the state level with these governors, 6 weeks abortion ban in Florida, and all these abortion bans of various short lengths, and restrictions, and real extreme, in some cases, just incredibly extreme scenarios, where there's just no no rights for women under any circumstances in some of these states, to get have abortion access. And so, when you restrict half the country's rights, and that also not only turns them off, but turns out a lot of men in our country that don't want to see their wives and spouses and daughters and nieces and the women in their lives and and their families have those kind of people getting their family business. So that extreme has led to this pretty resounding on the state and federal level rebuke by voters that vote in general elections. Now, rewind to Sunday's results of the Biden Trump polling that took place, that was released by the New York Times, and this has been fairly consistent with polling that we've seen across the board the last several months. Is that Trump in some arguably is leading in some of these swing states, pretty much the majority of which he has to win to take the White House from Biden, and across the board, Biden's favorabilities, because of his age and because of the general cranky nature of our electorate right now, because of inflation and people just not feeling like they're getting ahead, and in some cases, in some major metropolitan areas, the crime spikes. Biden's in trouble still, regardless of the fact that, from an issue perspective, Democrats are with the American public, pretty solidly. So, what that means for our politics is that we have to understand that we don't have to change our values. We're with the country value wise and issue wise, and that comes out consistently in the polling, even more acutely with the Latino community. And the Latino community is overwhelmingly with us on all these issues, including abortion access and reproductive rights, by the way. But it does, if you dig into the crosstabs of some of this polling, the Latino community is even more sensitive to the economic challenges that our country faces. Latinos are working more than everybody. We are busting our ass more than everybody, working 2, 3 jobs, man. And, and obviously I don't tell you how much harder our immigrant brothers and sisters work than anybody. And, we don't feel like we're getting ahead in terms of being able to get a job, their kids affording college, and being able to buy a home and kind of build wealth the way they feel like they should deserve because of how hard they're working, and they have every right to feel that way. And so, and then the other piece is that so we have that additional challenge where we have to do extra messaging to the Latino community and listen to them, and not just tell them all these great things Biden has done, and he's done some significant good things to try to address these issues, but that we have to just give me a second, Bobby. My son's over here, my young boy Max. Just give me a second, big guy. I'll be with you. We have to uh, listen to them, understand that these concerns are legitimate, and not just try to convince them that they're wrong because they're not. They're not wrong. They're feeling these things. These are real issues that, in particular, are impacting the Latino community, but they're impacting people all over the country. And then we have to invest in organizing them. Uh, Over a third of the time, and we're gonna my organization, Leaders US, coming out with some fresher polling very soon, which I'll share in the coming days on the show. But you know, uh, a lot of times nobody talks to Latinos one way or another. So that opens this information desert that we have around politics and what's going on, leaves skepticism, leaves confusion, and leaves the door open for misinformation to creep in and influence our folks in their politics. So we can't blame them if they don't have the information. We can't blame them for not listening to them. We can't blame them if we're not speaking to them in a language and a style and with stakeholders they respect and voices that they relate to, not just that are Latino, but really impact that they relate to their day-to-day lives, and they respect. We can't blame them for not feeling warm and fuzzy about where we're at in our country right now in 2023. So there needs to be a historic investment. And if people dig into Google, I'm in the middle of those conversations in a very uh, in a very large national way and public way recently. But the reality is, there needs to be a lot of investment in empowering Latino leadership and local community organizations and national organizations to communicate and engage our community in this conversation, because if we don't, we could have a very, very bad result next year, and that'll put our whole country in a peril. So we have to continue to talk to our folks, respect where they're at, and understand that it's going to take a lot of work to get them in the place they need to be, not just on the presidential level, the Senate level. Manchin's resignation or deciding not to run really gives the Democratic Party no room for error. We basically have to run the table with about 6, 7 competitive Senate races next year, many of which Latinos will decide in places like Nevada and Arizona, and my home state of Pennsylvania, among others. But we're going to have to really engage Latinos in places like Orange County, California, Central Valley, California, the Texas Valley, South Florida, Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, northern Colorado, and these in New Mexico, to win and in some places flip congressional districts so that Democrats can control the House going into 2025. So there's a lot on the line. We're going to continue to beat the drum on that situation on a national level. But the last piece of politics I wanted to share was going back to the 2023 election results as it relates to my home city of Philadelphia. We just had our mayoral elections, our city council races, our judicial races, which was very important from a state perspective. And we had a former city councilwoman, Cheryl Parker, win election. She'll be not just the first woman, but the first Black woman to be the mayor of Philadelphia, which I think is very appropriate in 2020, going into 2024 for sure, if you know the history of Philadelphia. And, look, all things being equal, Ms. Parker, Mayor-elect Parker, perfectly acceptable mayor. I mean, she's paid her dues to city council, and by all accounts is a very competent woman. And we look forward to seeing what she's able to do in city council and in the mayoralty. But we have a lot of skepticism in our community, particularly in the Latino community, about just feeling, well, what does it matter? Democrats have been in control forever. She's part of the quote unquote establishment, and what, and so our folks have a right to be skeptical. And so the one of the positive things, one of the opportunities in particularly Latinos have is that our Latino leadership, shout out to Councilwoman Ketsi Losada, who won her reelection on Tuesday. And we're really excited about her future and are here to support her and in her endeavors on city council. But on down, the community leadership across the board, other elected officials like State Representative Danilo Burgos and on and on and on, um, have access to this mayor. And so they have an opportunity and really have a moment here to really wield their power, wield their influence to really show our community that we can make positive change if we work together. And so there's an opportunity there. I'll certainly be there to support them as our local leadership and also to hold them accountable because we've got a shot here and really excited about the future. But we have to show collectively, and I put myself in that as much as anybody, we have to show collectively that another Democrat or another person that's quote unquote part of the same old is not the same old. And so we have a responsibility to hold ourselves accountable and inform the community about what we're doing to try to make this a new day in Philadelphia. And the last part in Philadelphia that I think is very instructive, which I want to close with, is the Working Families Party, which many of you outside the East Coast may not know too much about. Actually won 2 seats on city council. We reserve the way the city's set up. We have district councils, city district council seats, and we have at-large seats, and there's 7 of them out of the 17 that represent the whole city, and we always reserve 2 for the minority party. That's always the Republicans because they're the minority party in Philly. But the Working Families Party hustled the last cycle in 19 to win one of the seats and now won both the seats. So Kendra Brooks and Nicholas O'Rourke. And so I wanted to bring that up because and rightfully so. People expressed, even in this last election, a lot of frustration with Philadelphia, with the same old, and our politics writ large across the board, nationwide and on every level. And so I wanted to bring that up because in this case, the Working Families Party and these local leaders did something about it and organized. And you talk about trying to win as a third party, a city council seat in a big city, citywide. It takes a lot of heavy lifting to do that. And so I just want to congratulate them and really teach all of us that if you want to see change, you have to take some responsibility to be part of that change. And so I just want to because even people that I don't necessarily agree with on everything or a lot of things, they have a right to have their voice expressed and it's right for them to want to see better for Philadelphia. And so I would just point to what the Working Families Party just did in Philadelphia and say, if you want to see change, maybe it's a more moderate change, maybe a more conservative change, maybe it's just some change in one department or one issue. You have to take responsibility to be part of making that change happen. It's not just going to happen. And so I encourage people to get more involved in the game, similarly the way the WFP just did, and showing us that change can happen and change happens all the time. I don't have to tell people, how people's activism is influencing all kind of conversations in this country right now. So kudos to people that are in the game um, and working to make positive change happen for their community every day. And I want to thank everyone for watching this very special birthday edition of Bomba Live. Thank you all for people that have already reached out. It's early in the morning and dozens of people have already reached out to share their well wishes. I want to thank everyone for being part of this journey. I'm going to go get the kids some pancakes right now. You have a wonderful, wonderful day. Con bomba.